you want to make habits stick, we're going to be going over 4 to 5 key things. The first thing that we want to always do is start with an incredibly tiny habit. Now, if you've been following my content for any length of time, you already know this idea that if we try to go all or nothing, the chance of essentially relapse goes way up. So, the way that you're going to be able to essentially stay consistent is starting with something small that's low pain. Again, you've probably heard me say this in the past, but the key to making sure that you get to your goal and maintain it forever is based on one thing and really one thing only. Oh, that light is intense. I look like I'm being shined on by the heavens. It's really predicated on you starting and never stopping again. That's it. If you can start and never stop again, no matter how small your progress is, you'll win. What stops people what stops progress is the downsides. It's stopping. So here are 5 things. First one is start with an incredibly tiny habit. You're optimizing for starting and never stopping again. You want to make it so easy you can't say no. For example, when starting exercise with a client who hates exercise, do you think that we're going to start with the most optimal thing that will get them results? In the short term, no. People ask me a lot, hey, what's the best workout? What's this? What's that? And a lot of times, that's not the question that they should be asking. The question that they should be asking is, what is the action that I should do that will allow me to keep doing actions? And for some people, that means 2 minutes on the treadmill. So when I've started clients in the past on exercise that hate it, what we would do is make it so easy they can't say no. They would come into their garage. The treadmill, in that case for them, would be right there before going inside. And we would do 2 minutes on the treadmill. That's it, 2 minutes. Make it so easy you can't say no. And guess what? She would do 2 minutes, and I said, if you're feeling great, do 5. If you're feeling absolutely over the top, do 10. And what started to happen was she would get on the treadmill, do the 2, almost always do more than 2, 80 to 90% of the time. And then she would feel good about herself when she was doing 5 or 10. Plus, she was getting positive reinforcement from me and other coaches who were like, oh my God, you're doing 100, 200% more than we planned. You're amazing. You're incredible. You're killing it. So guess what? She wanted to do more. She wanted to walk more, right? And then it was, hey, you've been doing this already for a week. How do you feel about adding 10 squats? Maybe in between, we'll do like a minute on the treadmill, then we'll go do 10 squats. And then go do a minute again. And she's like, oh, I can do that. That's easy. Cool. And we're just stacking. And then guess what? Fast forward, guess where she was in 12 weeks? Man, I got to fix this light. Guess where she was in 12 weeks? She was working out 4 times a week, 30 minutes each, 10 minutes of cardio, 20 minutes of resistance training, and it felt easy. The key is we can't start there. We have to start easy and then build up. So in her case, in your case, if you hate exercise, if you hate exercise right now, let me know in the chat. If you hate exercise, what we need to start with is something so easy that you can't say no. So as we move on, let's skip below a little bit and go into increase your habit in very small ways. Well, we already just described that. We just described what this client did, where they walked for 2 minutes, then they walked for 5. They overachieved. They felt good about it. They told everyone about it. They told us. We reinforced it. The community reinforced it. And then, hey, can you do 10 squats in between? Yeah, I could try that. And they did, right? So you increase your habit by very small ways. And again, this is the power of tiny gains. I love this graph. It is one of the most profound graphs that articulate or show you what our process is in a nutshell. A lot of people grade themselves on their progress in a week or 6 weeks or 12 weeks. I say, forget all that. Rate your progress a year from now. Because here's why. You can have the best, you've probably seen this post of mine, you can have the best progress in 6 weeks or 12 weeks. But those same people that blow out the results of this approach in 6 to 12 weeks, a year from now, aren't even doing it anymore. Why? Because they've essentially were relying on willpower. And the fact of the matter is, if your life isn't stressful now, stress is coming. Hate to be the bearer of bad news, right? And when a lot of people start exercise routines and start to get healthy, they do it at the times that it's the easiest. Meaning, how many times have you heard or even said this yourself? I know I have with other areas of my life. I've said, well, it's not a good time. I'll do it when I have more time. I'll do it when things are better. I'll do it when there's, things are more opportune. But the problem is when we start around those times, we make it so that when things get stressful again, we stop. So if we really want to be successful, you should be starting this when all hell's breaking loose. And I know that sounds crazy, but it sounds crazy because of the approach that maybe we've taken in the past, which is all or nothing. But I promise you, if you can start this journey when everything's going wrong and all hell's breaking loose, what's it going to be like when the storm stops and the summer's here? Well, it's going to feel great, and you're going to be able to continue through any time. So this is powerful stuff, right? Increase your habit in very small ways, like we just gave in the example before. As you build up, break habits into small chunks. Now, this could be, again, it's funny, I kind of gave away the whole thing in the beginning with that story with that client, but this is exactly what we want to think about. As we're building up, we're breaking habits into small chunks. For example, hey, I'm not going to have to go work out for 30 minutes. Maybe that just means I do a 5-minute workout 6 times, right? Because the idea of working out for 5 minutes, and I'm not saying that's what this client did, but that could be you. Hey, working out or doing 5 minutes of exercise 6 times a day intermittently is easier for some people than doing 30 minutes all at once because it seems heavy, right? Just as an example. I saw someone say, hey, I don't know who it is though. It's not showing me. Brenda says, hey, Brenda Cohen, what's up? Good to see you. Number 4, when you slip, get back on track quickly. This is probably one of the most important pieces to transforming your body and sustaining it forever. I'm going to tell you something that will shock you. So if you are not sitting down, sit down now, because you are going to fall out of your seat, or you're just not going to believe me. In my experience, and I've been a coach for over 15 years, I've worked with over 1,000 women and some men, right? But majority women, like 96% women. The people who get to their final goal and sustain it, and the people who don't, right, and struggle to get there, fall off the wagon or slip the same amount of times. I'll say that one more time. The people who get to where they want to be and sustain it, and the people who do not, slip the same amount of times. They have all the same things happen in their life. The struggles, the setbacks, the disappointments. But you might say to yourself, well, then how can one person get a result and one person not? The difference is this. The person that's able to get to their goal and sustain it gets back on track faster. Their slips are minimized to a day or hours at most. And the person who doesn't get to the goal lets that slip last for weeks or months, in some cases years. One of the biggest tools, or one of the biggest strategies that you can adopt, one of the strongest beliefs that you can adopt is never miss twice. Because if you can have a setback and you can just get right back on, your uptime percentage-wise goes through the roof. This is how you win. I'll use Haley as an example because a lot of you know Haley's story. One of the most powerful things that Haley got during the time we worked together was she was able to eliminate a lot of her food guilt. And you might say, well, how does that correlate to weight loss? It correlates to weight loss because in the past, and this is like real data, right? In the past, she would, quote, cheat or have something less optimal. And then what would happen? She would feel guilt for weeks, right? And maybe not guilt for weeks. She would feel immediate guilt. That guilt would manifest into cheating more. And then she would not feel very motivated to keep working out and doing things. Why? Because, oh my gosh, I'm a failure. Well, let me just ignore it because focusing on this thing equals pain. I'm not going to do it anymore. And then that would last for weeks or months. So her uptime went way low. Whereas on the other side, she solved her food guilt. So she would eat something like less optimal. And then the next day, She just go right back to eating well and right back to exercising. And we might say, oh man, that seems too easy. This is the psychology of weight loss. This is the psychology to lose the weight and sustain it forever. It's just hard to adopt that. But I can promise you that it's possible, right? Because think about the uptime. We'll use Haley in this case. Haley, in situation one, scenario one, she eats the unfavorable thing, feels the guilt, eats more unfavorable things the next day, and then is off track for 2 weeks until 2 weeks she gets frustrated and says, okay, I got to do it again. And she does it again. And she's on track for 2 weeks and then off track for 2 weeks. She is on track 50% of the time, off track 50% of the time. So it equals out. So no progress. Whereas in the other scenario, she has no food guilt. She solves it. So because she has no food guilt, she eats the food and then, with the hot dogs and ice cream. And then the next day gets right back to it, feels no guilt. And essentially is like, no, like that's part of life. I was out with my family. What do you want from me? Whatever. And she goes back. And now she only does that once a week, or maybe every time there's an event. And let's say that even thinking in a, I'll say, less than conservative way, you have 26 events a year, which is like holidays and birthdays, which means one every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, she goes off the rails, but then she goes right back on. She goes off the rails 1/14 of the time in this scenario. 1/14 is what? 7%, something like that, which means her uptime is 93%. Who's going to get better results? Somebody that has uptime of the habits for 93% of the time, or the person who has it for 50% of the time? You and I both know the answer. So if you can optimize for this, when you slip, get back on quickly, you win. And you win by not necessarily having a winning strategy. You win by mastering your psychology, by mastering your state. Your state is how you feel, right? And this is why I don't want this to be an ad for coaching, but this is sometimes why having somebody externally, not necessarily a coach, but having somebody externally can be so beneficial. Because when you're the subject and you're feeling like garbage, it's really tough to look at the silver lining, right? But sometimes it takes a friend or a coach or a partner to be able to say, hey, like, I get it. It's not great, but like, look at all this other stuff. And it changes your focus so that you can feel better, so that you can get back on the wagon, so that when you slip, you get back on track faster. Hopefully this is making sense. This is probably one of the most profound pieces to long-term sustainability. We can even talk about this a little bit here. Top performers make mistakes, commit errors, get off track just like everyone else. Difference is they get back on track quickly as possible, just like we talked about. Research has shown missing your habit once, no matter when it occurs, has no measurable impact on long-term progress. I mean, that goes without being said, right? Like, a lot of times, again, this is an emotional thing. We miss, we fail, we don't work out, we don't eat perfectly, and we feel something. And it's the feeling that screws us up. The mechanic itself of eating French fries and ice cream one day does nothing to your long-term progress. Nothing. What does do something to your long-term progress is the guilt you feel, which means you don't do the actions the next day because in your head, you have to be all or nothing. Getting rid of the all or nothing mentality is one of the most powerful psychology breaks, belief breakers. If you think about one of the things we do in this group and with coaching is change your beliefs. You might say, wait, hold on a sec. A coach is supposed to give me nutrition, workouts, and like just the mechanics. And I'm here to say that's not enough. A coach should give you the psychology, the emotional piece, because that's how you really make this happen. Because think of it this way. If you only get results when there's essentially someone there keeping you accountable, you're relying on a coach forever. Our process is, hey, let's get you to your goal, teach you, or not only teach you, but help you develop the new beliefs so that you don't need us anymore. It's funny, I told that to a friend of mine who's like an entrepreneur, and he's like, that's a terrible business model. But I'm like, yeah, but that's an approach that actually helps people so that we can break through, right? Like we call our program like the 12-week R Embody Breakthrough. It's not just a fun name. Breaking through, when you break through, you shatter the glass ceiling. That's it. There is no going back. You cannot repair a glass ceiling. You broke through, right? And that's what we're trying to do. And you don't have a breakthrough mechanically. Generally, you have a breakthrough emotionally, right? So that's kind of the name of the game. Hey, Rebecca, what's up? Good to see you. All right. So when you fall, just make sure we get back on. That is the key. Huge, huge, huge. And optimizing for that, optimizing, like we said, for never missing twice, optimizing for thinking of this strategy as uptime. You don't have to be 100%, just uptime. What is the percentage of uptime you have? And compare it to where you are. Because again, if you are starting where 50% of the time you eat well and 50% of the time you don't shoot for 100%, shoot for 60% or 70% or 80% uptime. And by uptime, I mean actions that are getting you to your goal, right? Number 5, be patient, stick to a pace you can sustain. Again, we look at this and everything we talk about, the whole reason that habit formation is the key to sustainable results is because it means you never stop. But what is a surefire way that you stop? You make it too hard, right? You'll hear me say it until the day I die, right? Everything you do should be in line with human nature. Do not fight against human nature. Human nature is always going to be to move away from pain and move towards pleasure. If the actions that you're doing on a daily basis are requiring too much willpower and they give you pain, meaning the idea of going to the gym is painful, working out is painful, eating well is painful, whatever it is, you have to identify where you are and then take the next logical step. That's the lowest pain, highest reward. That's how you get to your goal, right? And then you stack. The reason that fad diets don't work is because, again, they sell you this idea that like, hey, this is going to be super easy. Or maybe they don't even sell you the idea it's going to be easy, but like, hey, this is going to get you a lot of results. So the pleasure is super high, but then you get into it and it's really painful, but the pleasure is higher. You rely on willpower. And here's the craziest part. A lot of people get results short term on fad diets, but when you get the result, what happens at the end? Let's look at pain and pleasure. Well, to maintain this, the actions that you were doing to get you to your goal were painful. And to sustain the goal, it's also painful. And the pleasure has taken really a big drop because you've now gotten used to the way your body looks, the way it looks. It looks healthy. It looks great. You're fit. You look great in a bikini. But the actions you're taking are still really painful. And the pleasure is no longer there. Your brain doesn't associate pleasure with it because it becomes familiar. So now what? Well, now you're technically screwed because now you're living in pain, and your brain does not like pain. It will not live in pain very long. It will find a way to always get out of it and to get into pleasure. So because of that, people that have gotten great results externally, before and after, looks amazing with keto or with all these things. As long as they associate pain to it, that's when we usually go back and we gain the weight. So my advice to you is do not take an approach that is painful. Do not do it. Like we've almost been like I feel like to some extent, all the Rocky movies have perverted our mentality where it's like, and like, don't get me wrong, I do believe to a degree that there's something powerful about the hero's journey, about like pushing through and like, being triumphant on the other side. And it's like, I fought through it like 75 hard, cool. But what I'm also here to say is that's a movie, right? Rocky is a movie. Rocky is not a real person. And it seems great to like go all in, but like a lot of the times when we hear these stories of like Rocky, for example, he has nothing. There is no pleasure. All he has is pain. So of course he can just do that thing. For a lot of us in today's day and age, we live in a pretty pampered world, meaning like we have a lot of joy in life. There's a lot of pleasures that we experience: food and comfort, warmth, relationships. Or yeah, of course, why would your brain want to go and exercise? I can just go sit on the couch, right? So if we want to, in the world that we live in, with all the creature comforts that we have, if we want to be able to sustain a habit, it absolutely has to feel easy, which is against what the majority of people will tell you, because look, it's not sexy. It's not sexy to say, like, let's say you're talking to someone, like, what feels better? Hey, yeah, I just worked out. I just started my program. I worked out 4 times this week. I increased my sleep. I started eating well. I'm listening to 2 hours of podcast per day. I am all in. And somebody goes, wow, good for you. You're on fire. And they look at the measurable change and you feel good about it. And everyone's on fire and it's great. But that doesn't last. And then eventually it catches up to us and we stop. And it's because human nature, right? Pain and pleasure. It feels a lot less sexy than, let's say you're talking to your husband or you're talking to somebody at work and you've been doing something for 4 weeks, like this program, and they go, "Oh, cool. I'm down 10 pounds. What are you down? What are you doing? Oh, I'm down like 2 pounds, but it's actual 2 pounds of fat. It's like, oh, cool. What are you doing? Oh, I'm not even exercising yet. I just like go on a 5-minute walk every day, and I do like a little bit of journaling at night, and I've been watching what I've eaten. I've been increasing my protein, but I still get to eat whatever I want for the most part. Right? They're in week 3. What feels better? Obviously, the person that's going all in because they get caught up in the high. But I promise you that the way to win is by sustaining it. And like, you've probably already seen this before. Like, has anyone here looked at the blueprint before? The 12-week Orange Body Breakthrough Blueprint? If you have it, I just want to show it to you really quick because like it is like I put this right in the blueprint to give you an idea. Let me scroll down to it. So I put this week to week here, right? So I give you like some weekly targets. It does not sound sexy to have somebody starting at this starting point, right? Oh, let me move this over for you. It does not sound sexy to have somebody start at this starting point here, which is here, and then over 12 weeks only make it to here, right? Like, hold on a sec. You're telling me that you want me to go from 5 hours a night to 7 hours a night of sleep. You want me to be able to exercise from 0 to 3 times a week. You want me to be able to start drinking my goal weight in ounces with water, and you want my stress to come down, and you want me to be having about 0.75 grams of my goal weight in protein. I can do that all right now. I have no doubts you could do it right now, right? But the answer is, could you do it in 12 weeks, 24 weeks, or 52 weeks? And if you are doing it in 52 weeks, you've won. Remember, the way that you win this game is by continually playing. 52 weeks from now, you want to be still playing the game. That's what matters. This is not about what the scale says 12 weeks from now so that you can feel good for a day or so that you can talk to your friends about it or have a really good before and after. This is about 10 years from now, you still doing this. I'm sure you would agree. So with this in mind, like if you're not working with a coach, this should be your goal. Like just start easy. And like, here's how I would like break it down week to week without having any context on who you are or what you do. Like these actions week to week seem extremely simple, but it's through simplicity that you're able to essentially get to where you want to get to, right? And I mean, that's how you win this game. You win this game by starting and never stopping again. You're going to hear me say that until the end of time. That you win this game by starting and never stopping again. That is the key. So be patient, stick to a pace you can sustain, and then you win. Like that is how you win. Learning to be patient is perhaps the most critical skill of all, right? In a world of instant gratification, right? There's a reason that the supplement industry, like I think it's, I can't remember exactly. I think it's like $20 billion. It might be more. There's a reason that everyone buy supplements. And I'm talking about like fat burners and stuff because we want something faster than it's meant to come. And that's human nature. So if we can, that's the only part of human nature that we don't lean into 100%. But if we can make sure that we can stay the path, I mean, we win, you know? So if you're just tuning in, a couple notes, there's 5 key pieces, right? Number 1, start with an incredibly small habit. Number 2, increase your habit in very small ways. And I'll give you the story in case you're just tuning in. Number 3, as you build up, break habits into small chunks. Number 4, when you slip, get back on track quickly. And number 5, be patient. Stick to a pace you can sustain. So if you're just tuning in, I'm going to tell you the story really quick about one of my clients. So one of my clients hated exercise, which a lot of people generally do, or they at least connect a high amount of pain to it. And human nature is always to stay away from pain and go towards pleasure. So these actions, we have to make sure if we want something to stick, we have to make sure that your brain associates low pain and high pleasure. So what we did for her was Make it low pain. How do we make it low pain? Every time she came home, she had the treadmill right in the garage. Treadmill was sitting there. She would walk by, 2 minutes. That was the non-negotiable. 2 minutes to her, she felt, of course, no matter how tired I am or what's going on, I can always do 2 minutes. That was the goal, and we did it every day. So she would walk 2 minutes on the treadmill. With those 2 minutes, very often she would be doing those 2 minutes and say to herself, 2 minutes? I'm already here. I can do 5. And then she'd do 5 or do 10. And every time she would do 5 or 10, I would essentially make her feel amazing. I'd make her feel like she was like doing actions that were just incredible. And what would happen? Her brain starts to associate pleasure to this action. Hey, when I walk a little bit longer, I get a lot of recognition from my coach and other people. They tell me how great I am. Okay, cool. Well, hey, maybe I'll do a little bit more of that. Then that action got consistent for 2 weeks. She was walking about 10 minutes on her own, 10 minutes every day. Cool. Super easy. Then all we did was we said, hey, do you think that between every 2 minutes on the treadmill, you could just like go and do 10 squats? Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, okay, easy, cool. And we started doing that. And she got rewarded for it, right? And she got rewarded for it too, because right around this point, it was like week 3 of this exercise, and she was able to start to see her body change. Oh, okay. Now we're doing good. Now we're feeling good. Now we're really getting rewarded, but the pain is staying low. And then we continue on. And then she keeps going. And then by the end of 12 weeks, she was doing a daily walk on the treadmill with like a daily workout of like 10 minutes. That's like the long story, the short story. The longer story is we tested a bunch of stuff. We tried doing 3 days a week and did it longer. And then we ended up doing 7 days. What she settled on was doing it 3 days a week, longer times. That's where she felt better and she was able to hold it. So a lot of what we do too is testing. Like you'll hear me say this idea a lot of test and iterate. People will ask me sometimes like, hey, what's the best way to start exercise? What should I start to do for exercise? And the answer is, I don't know. I don't know you. I don't know where you're starting from. But if I had that context, I'd be able to give you a better answer. But the approach is always identify where you are and identify what is the lowest painful step you can take that will give you the greatest result. Meaning if there's an action that will be a 1 out of 10 pain and a 5 out of 10 pleasure or 5 out of 10 result, I'd prefer you take that than a 5 out of 10 pain, 10 out of 10 result. Because one has a delta of 5x or 400%, 5x. The other has a delta of 2, right? 2x or 100%. And we always want to have the highest delta possible. So, okay, we had some comments. I can't see your name yet, though. Hold on, let me look. Rebecca says, slow, consistent changes over time will bring results. Yes, indeed. I also see another comment here. I don't know who said it, though. But let me look. Michelle says, I'm on my first week with my coach, and I already know this will be one of the best things I've ever done. Getting sleep has changed me. Yeah, let's go, Michelle. Crushing it. I love to hear that you're getting the sleep. I would love to know, too, 1, who's your coach? And 2, what has been great for you so far? I'm thrilled to hear that, too. And I will say, guys, if you're just tuning in, sleep is one of the most impactful things to transform your life, right? I'll say that one more time. Sleep is one of the most impactful things to transform your life. We've talked about this in the past. If you're on the 7-day challenge, you already know this is the truth. Because when you sleep well, it will increase your indirect results higher than anything else you could possibly do. Why? Well, when you sleep, everything feels possible. Your emotional resilience goes up. So that things that happen in your life, it's like smothering your body in Vaseline. So as things come at you, as life punches you in the face, it just glides right off. Whereas when you sleep terribly, it's like putting baby powder all over your body. So when anytime a punch of life comes your way, you just get grabbed onto and knocked out. Do not let the baby powder, do not be baby powdered by life. Be Vaselined. Let me know if you like that analogy. I don't know if I'm going to keep it. Oh, no. But yeah, sleep will transform your life more than anything else. Because if you solve sleep, that's where you start to uncover so I'll say this. When you get good sleep, actions that before required willpower now don't require willpower. I'll say that one more time. This is really powerful. Actions that before required willpower, that were like a 5 out of 10, like going on a walk outside, when you sleep well, actually require no willpower at all and give you no pain. Huh, crazy. And now, guess how much, and now it's so easy to be in this delta of low pain, high pleasure. And that's how you start to win. So it's a really amazing thing. Michelle, I'm thrilled to hear that that getting sleep has changed you. I'm curious if you're still here. What about your sleep? Like, when's the last time you really slept well? And if you guys are on the challenge, you already know, like, this is why the first habit, right? There were 3 habits we talked about. And a lot of the habits, I had people message me and they said, why are these the habits? Like, I was expecting I have to exercise more, or do more cardio, or like eat less foods, or like, what's my perfect diet? And you guys already know, if you were on the challenge, there was 3 things. Number 1, it was increase your sleep to a minimum of 50 hours a week, 50 or 56 hours a week. That's number 1, and we went through the actions. That's objective 1. Objective 2 was increase your protein. Increase your protein, bring it to 0.75 grams of your goal weight. And then number 3 was self-talk. It was just improving your input, listening to things that were empowering. Now, I will tell you that if I showed that to myself 10 years ago, that person would have said, this is a load of crap. Like, you should be working out harder, and you should be like reducing your carbs and doing all this stuff. But it's 2 mentalities. The first mentality is actually sustainable for the long term, and it's taking advantage of what I like to call the biggest levers. You see, every one of us has a bowl of marbles. And these marbles, otherwise, other people have called them spoons. We only have so many spoons, right? But I like the marble analogy. In this bowl of marbles are all of our attention. And we only have, 10 or 20 marbles of attention that we can put towards everything in our life before we feel overloaded. Another analogy for this is tabs in a computer. Our brain is just a computer, if you think about it. And just like a MacBook that I'm on right now, if I have more than 50 tabs open, my computer slows down and does not work nearly as well. If I put 80 tabs open, it crashes and I have to restart it. And if you think about it, that's kind of similar to humans. If we have too many tabs open, we tend to not work as well. And it messes with our clarity. And if we have 80 tabs open, eventually we crash and we burn. And we don't want to do that. And what is crashing and burning? We get sick. We shouldn't be getting sick. If we take care of ourselves, we really shouldn't be getting sick, in my belief. So with that in mind, if we can make sure that every action you're doing is the biggest lever, like you only have to focus on 3 things, and these 3 things, think of them like dominoes. If you push down the biggest domino, all of the other subsequent ones will fall. Shouldn't you just focus on pushing the biggest domino? The answer is yes, always, 100%. Always focus on the biggest lever, right? This is why, if you've worked with me directly, or I have listened to the content that I've been producing for a while now, it's all about leverage. It's all about how can I do the least amount and get the most. And when you do that, you win, because then your brain associates, wow, I'm not really doing that much. This is not a lot of effort, and I'm getting all of these benefits. Oh my gosh. That's where you're winning big, and that's where you start to make this a habit that lasts forever. If your brain, and you've heard me say this a lot, but if your brain can associate more pleasure to the actions you're doing and less pain by like a measurable delta, you will never stop, right? Because that is like everything you do as humans is for pain, and is to get away from pain and move towards pleasure. That's it. So if you can just leverage that, you win. So, and if we think about why these actions are high leverage, it's because when you sleep, you have more willpower. Things that otherwise felt like they needed willpower before don't require any. Also, when you increase protein as one of the levers, you don't have to deprive yourself because you don't even want any other foods. Before, those cookies or having these cravings, go away for a lot of people, not for everyone. Uh, but they go away in a lot of cases. So you don't even have to focus on reducing, you increase, don't decrease. Frees up a lot of marbles of attention. And then you have the last piece, which is the self-talk, which is the most controversial out of all of them. Because it's like, wait, how is that going to lead? Like me standing in a mirror saying, I'm worthy, I'm worthy, I'm worthy, isn't going to change anything in the real world. And I would say, you're right, today. But a month from now, probably would. Or 2 months from now, or 3 months from now, or a year from now. And I'm not here to say, like, do affirmations in the mirror, even though that maybe would be considered some input. What I do believe is that we are a product of what goes into our brain. And this might be a controversial take, but I believe that when we are born as blank slates for the most part. And we have free will, in my opinion, but I believe that we are a great deal of who we are today is because of the input that was put into us. Meaning, I believe more in nurture than nature. Meaning, I don't believe that when I was born to be this person. I believe that I was influenced and I had a lot of input through the years. I ran into Tony Robbins when I was 15 years old, Zig Ziglar when I was 13 years old. And I've been listening to these guys. I've heard these people's voices more than I've heard my own parents, which is why I'm probably, to a degree, more like these people than I am my parents at this point, because you become what you're around. If you want to become somebody who's fit, hang around with fit people. Be here now, right? Like the 11 of you that are. Where focus goes, energy flows, results soon follow. If you want to be able to change your life, one of the easiest ways to do it is by changing what you hear on a daily basis and changing who you're around. Why do birds of a feather flock together? It's because it's like a echo chamber, right? The input is put in, and then the output's put out, and it just reverberates. So our life is usually the accumulation of the 5 people we associate with the most in any area of life: physical body, emotions, finances, relationships, whatever. If you want to have the body you want, a body that you've never had before, you have to associate in a group of people that you haven't associated that values that like never before, like this group, right? Every day, or at least 4 days a week, I'm here live. Talk to me. I'm here, right? I want to make sure that I can get through, right? The mission of this group is to help as many people as possible to have physical and emotional breakthroughs that can lead to, of course, the body they want. That's why we're here. That's why this group exists. That's why this business is why our Embodied Transformations exists. It's to have people have breakthroughs. And one of the ways we have that breakthrough is just by constantly being reinforced. Remember, we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. And a lot of us have a record player that's playing that is honestly old and outdated, telling us things that aren't true, that maybe we heard growing up from our parents or from people about our self-worth or about certain things and how that relates to our self-worth. And it's going to take some time to change that. But guess what? You can. You can change. You can grow. No matter what you've experienced in the past, I'm here to tell you that the best is yet to come if you believe it is. I can't remember who said it. I think it might have been Benjamin Franklin. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And the reason is because whatever you believe, whatever you think, leads to the actions you take. And those actions lead to the results you get. And usually those results that you get lead to a new belief, better or worse, leading you either on a virtuous cycle upward or a vicious cycle downward. And if you're on a vicious cycle downward or have been for many years at this point, it's time to break that pattern, baby. And it's time to go to a virtuous cycle. Michelle says, I'm actually driving right now, but I pulled over for this. Woo! Let's get it, Michelle. Changing lives. I love it. Michelle says, I've only slept 4 to 5 hours a night for years. Every once in a while, I might sleep 12, thinking I would catch up, but it never works. I realize now that not sleeping made everything harder. I thought staying awake was giving me my time, but I was so tired. Now I'm enjoying my evenings by sleeping. I love that. Michelle says, Rachel is my coach. It's as you said, these little changes are making a difference and they're easy. I can't believe it. I'm not as overwhelmed either. That is incredible. Michelle, like that is so powerful. Like I can imagine how you feel, because this is how I've heard it expressed to me by other clients in the past. Is like, it's almost like, yeah, shattering a glass ceiling where you're like, whoa, hold on a second. Like, not to change subject too much, but I remember I had a glass ceiling financially that shattered for me when I was like 17 years old. I was working at a martial arts studio and it was great. He was a great mentor. And I got to see what he made per year. And I saw that this person made $500,000 a year. And for a 17-year-old, I thought the most you could make was like $100,000. I was like, this is real. And I remember seeing that pay stub, like it was like a tax return. And I was like, this is shattered the glass ceiling of what was possible. And the same thing happens in this context as well. We shatter the glass ceiling. When you shatter the glass ceiling, life is never the same. And Michelle, one of the things I'm most excited for you is you've shattered this glass ceiling around sleep. And don't get me wrong, there may be times in the future that because of extraneous circumstances, you do get reduced sleep. But guess what? You'll always remember what it's like on the other side, because now you have that glass ceiling shattered. And now you can easily go back with the belief that, hey, this will fix my problem. And that's beautiful. So I'm thrilled for you, Michelle. Way to go. And also, guys, like this is a conversation. Like I know I'm ranting, but I know there's 9 of you here right now. If you have any comments, like feel free. I want this to be a conversation, but also I know people just come in and I want to make sure that I'm providing value even for people that are just popping in. So, we've already been going 45 minutes. The main thing with this whole thing is if you really want to be able to transform your body and sustain it forever, it's about starting and never stopping again. That is the answer. That is the non-sexy answer. Because even if you could just go 1% better every day, hell, even less than that, but 1% in a year from now, with compound interest, you'd be 37 times further along than you are right now. Whereas even if you go all in and you get 100% better in a week, or 200%, or 300%, or 400%, it looks good and it feels good for a week or two. But because of the pain and pleasure, we're then pulled away from it. And then we stop. And when we stop, the regression happens and we go right back to where we were. That is not a life I want you to live. Anybody. I do not want you to be on what is called a crazy 8. Crazy 8 is, if you've never heard it before, crazy 8 is when we are in the middle, life's normal, and then we get to the point where we get angry. We've seen ourselves in the mirror too many times, not loving the way we look, and we feel sad, essentially. And that sadness turns to anger. We say, fuck it. I'm in control. I'm transforming. This is it. Enough's enough. And we go into our cabinets. We throw out all the junk food. And we go to our husband and we say, hey, this is changing now. Like, I'm changing my life. And you rearrange your whole schedule. You start, you sacrifice your sleep because you're like, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to start working out before I go to work. You start working out at 4 a.m. And then you start working out 5 days a week, high intensity interval training. And you do that until eventually you can't stay mad forever. And that muscle that's flexed so hard eventually has to relax. And what happens when we relax in some cases? Well, now we go from anger to depression. And now we get sad. And that sadness is when we quit. The sadness is the relapse. The sadness is, God, I'll start again Monday. Sadness is, well, like this isn't going to work anyway, or whatever it is. And it's really our brain's way of getting out of pain and going towards pleasure, or really just getting out of pain, not even going towards pleasure, getting out of the pain that you're in. And then that sadness eventually goes back to neutral, and then we get angry again. Right? Does that sound familiar for anybody? And I say this because I've lived this. Like I have lived a crazy 8, not with fitness, but with business. Before I started my first personal training studio, I worked for somebody else. And I wanted to start my own thing. And I would just keep riding this crazy 8, and I never really got anywhere. I just spun my wheels. And that's not a life I want you guys to live. I want you to be able to break through, break free, get out of the pattern that we're stuck in, right? Debbie says, hey, what's up, Debbie? Rebecca says, I have tried other restrictive programs and they do bring results, but there's so much pain associated with it. Just couldn't stack it. Yeah. Couldn't stick with it. Yeah. Couldn't stick with it. Yeah. It's human nature, right? Like, and this is like so powerful, right? A lot of people believe that if they can't stick to a program that a coach has laid out, because the coach is supposed to be the professional, right? Follow me. If they can't stick to something a coach laid out, the client believe the problem is with them, further reinforcing the belief that the problem is them and not the approach. That's dangerous. Very dangerous, because now we're shifting beliefs in the opposite direction, where you're starting to believe, oh, yeah, I can't do this, so why would I even try? That's painful. So one of the most powerful things that we can do for ourselves is essentially realize, like, it's not you in regards to sticking to something. It shouldn't feel hard to stick to something. If it feels hard, it's too much based on where you are today. Rebecca says, if it seems easy and feels good, then it's a no-brainer, right? Easy peasy. It's funny. I've said on many videos before, it's like, if something was easy, how long could you do it for? And the answer is forever. The cognitive dissonance that we have sometimes is we don't associate exercise and changing our body with ease. And it's so far away, the cognitive dissonance, because we've never experienced it in this way, that it's like, that's not even possible. But it is. It is possible. Like, and here's like, maybe, I don't know if these numbers are 100% accurate, but let's say you do an all or nothing approach, and let's say the results are 100%, right? Let's just say that's the delta, is like, that's the top end, 100%. But the pain associated is like an 8. So that means that or we'll even just say, yeah, we'll say 8. So it's like not a big delta there of like pain and pleasure. Whereas our approach, the pain might be a 2. And the top end is a 6. Now you might say to yourself, why would I do the thing that gives me less results? Because it's not about next week. It's not even about next month. It's about next year, 10 years from now, right? And look at the delta difference. In situation 1, it's an 8 pain, 10 result. You can't keep that up for very long. Not forever. The only way you can keep that up, and I'm going to let you in on a huge secret, is not discipline. People who say to you, oh, I'm super disciplined, or you just got to be disciplined, I believe don't understand what's really going on in your brain, the neuroscience. Even me, right? Like, I've caught myself 10 years ago saying the same shit. Oh, you just need to be more disciplined. No, my brain associates more pleasure to these actions because I've already been doing it for a while. Here's what I mean. When I go to the gym now, I get pulled to the gym. It takes me less effort to go to the gym than it does to hold myself back from going. Why? Because I know I'm in shape. And when I work out, like, egotistically, I'm sure I like taking off and I like taking off my sweatshirt, being in my little wife beater and having like my veins show up and stuff. And I feel good. I feel confident. I feel powerful, right? I know every time I go to the gym, I'm going to be able to listen to my music. I'm going to be able to feel connected with myself in the zone. Somebody who's just starting exercise doesn't have that. They don't have that yet. So this idea of discipline, I believe, is a lie. Discipline's a lie, in my opinion. Like, that's just people being silly gooses. Or, and maybe some of it's true where it's like willpower, but I'll even say this, the people who actually are experiencing a lot of pain with their discipline, but keep doing it, like the David Goggins of the world, they also associate massive significance to keep going. Because guess what? No one else works this hard. No one else pushes through like I do. Their brain's associating pleasure. So once you understand the neuroscience just of like how humans are designed evolutionarily, we can leverage that to be able to get to your goal. So back to this thing, if your pain's an 8 and your pleasure's a 10, right? That delta is not very much. It's a 20%, right? Whereas if your pain's a 2 and your pleasure's a 6 or results are a 6, that's a 3x delta. That's a 300% or 200%, or whatever, 3x delta. That's crazy. From 0.2 to 2 or to 3x. How long can you keep that up? Almost forever, or maybe forever. I don't know, you know? And then you just keep playing that game where the pain, here's the cool thing, you keep actions up, habits, eventually this pain drops to a 1 because you're like, yeah, this is really easy. And the pain keeps going up. Or I'm sorry, the pleasure keeps going up as you associate more pleasure to it. So it's good stuff. It's good stuff. I have some more comments in here. Let's keep going. Let's hit the hour, guys. Let's do it. Let's party up. Lori says, be careful of who you listen to. My husband sees me making very small changes, i.e. walk 10 minutes. He belittles and reinforces this little thing won't make a difference. Whoa, this is powerful, right? Lori, I first off, I honor you for taking a second right now and like sharing the truth, sharing that, because like, that's not easy, I'm sure, to share. And like, that is 100% true. This goes back to what we were talking about before. We are the accumulation of the people we associate with, right? And it's all about input. That is input that we do not want. And it's unfortunate that it's coming from your husband. But the truth is, we have to either change that input by not being around it, or B, we have to talk to them, make them understand that like, hey, you're actually like really sabotaging me here. And like, this is something that an enemy would do. Don't be my enemy, right? I need your support. You know, I don't need more enemies. I need more friends, right? And like talk to them and make them understand. Because I'll be honest, men are kind of dumb sometimes, you know, coming from being a man, right? And men like sometimes will say things that like, you know, might not bother them if they were told it, but it bothers others. And like we talk to them, you know. But yes, got to control that input. Like there's been many times in my life, I remember, so like I'll tell you a quick story too. When I started my first personal training, or I'm sorry, my first gym. So like I was 22 years old. I had $10,000 to my name, in which I spent all in equipment. I spent all of my $10,000 in equipment, not realizing that after the 3 months of free rent that I got, I was going to have to pay rent. And I remember just before that, it all turned out well. It became a really successful gym. But before all that, when I was making the change, I had everyone around me saying, like, you're gonna fail. Even my parents. And don't get me wrong, my parents love me, but they wanted to protect me from the failure. So, knowing what I knew at that time about input, I knew that I couldn't listen to them if I was going to make this happen. If I was committing to it, I had to go essentially and get rid of the input that was going to slow me down. So I was still living at home, but for a good year, I literally just like went up to my room while I was building this gym. And it worked. And then of course later everyone's like, "Oh, I knew you'd do it. Yeah, I knew you'd do it. Great work." But like you have to protect your brain. Like I think it was Jim Rohn, who's another speaker I listened to in the past, and he said, every day stand guard at the door of your mind and feed it something good. Because the truth of the matter is, your worst enemy could put sugar in your coffee and you'd be fine. But your best friend could accidentally put strychnine in your coffee or rat poison and you would die. Do not let your friends put poison in your brain. Just in the same token, don't hold on to grudges. Hold no negativity within you. Let it go. Acid destroys the vessel in which it's stored. If there's someone that you have not forgiven, don't forgive them for them. Forgive them for you. One of the best ways, one of the easiest ways to have a breakthrough is by eliminating the headwinds. Let's read some of these comments. Let me know if this resonates. Lori says, wow, thank you for sharing that story, Ryan. I got a lot of them. If you want to hear some more stories, I got them, baby. We'll talk all day long. I have a bunch of stories. Michelle says, I had a trainer tell me I was giving up on my family because I couldn't stick to his program. I believed him and thought I was a loser. Finally, I know it wasn't me. Wow. Belief breaking, Michelle. Yeah. Like, you know, I don't want to get too much into like masculine and feminine energy, but like, I do believe that to a degree, before actually going in that degree, I'll say this. I do believe that coaching styles should be slightly different depending on an individual. And I don't necessarily mean whether they're a man or a woman, but I mean what energy they have, masculine energy or feminine energy, because the way you coach somebody that has masculine energy is different than the way that you coach someone who has feminine energy. What do I mean? Think about therapy. When you go to a therapist, male depression and female depression, or masculine energy depression and feminine energy depression, are try to be cured the same way, which is understanding, connection, and making people feel heard and like starting to get through problems. Men generally, masculine energy, and this is a lot of coaches are men, so they're just trying to, I don't think it's their fault necessarily. They're coaching someone the way that they want to be coached. And men want to feel powerful. Men want to feel capable. And a lot of men coach in a way that they try to essentially challenge you and you rise. So, Michelle, was that trainer you had in the past ill-willed, and were they like a terrible person? I don't believe so. I mean, is it possible? Sure. But I've met a lot of coaches that truly believe they're helping people that coach like that are like, if you wanted this, you would just go harder. Like, if you wanted that, like, if you don't push through, you're going to let everyone down. Like, your family's dying back there. You're going to carry the logs on your back. Like, and I don't think this is necessarily that they're a bad person. I think it's just that they don't understand maybe they didn't understand how to help you at that time. And probably what you needed was not to be told you were essentially a loser. What you needed to be shown was that, hey, like more caring approach of like, hey, you got a lot of stuff going on in your life right now. Let's just take the next logical step. And like, almost you needed a cheerleader more than a drill sergeant, which is what we talk about a little bit in our, we were talking a little bit in our coaching meeting on Tuesday with all of our coaches, or actually that was last Tuesday, talking about kind of the dichotomy between like, or the spectrum of coaching from drill sergeant to cheerleader and where we all fall naturally. And it was kind of an interesting discussion. Anyway, let's keep going here. Michelle says, that's nice to know. Yeah, it's good stuff. Lori says, be careful who you listen to. I think there's some other comments here, but I can't access them. I might have to jump in a different way. Here, let me do this. I'm going to copy this link and send it over here. Wow, I can't believe we've been on here a full hour. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Man, I can't see all the comments. Oh, actually, maybe I can if I go over here. I can't see who said it, but they said, I've done this over and over. Best things I've read are Atomic Habits and Make Your Bed, Little Steps to Health. Very, very true. I love that. And that's the only comment I missed. Okay, perfect. All right, cool. So guys, if you're out there, I'll wrap up here. If you're out there, just know that you can do this. Like, you can have a breakthrough mentally and physically. It's possible. Like, you just probably have to take a different approach, right? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So let's do something new. Let's take a new step and let's have a breakthrough, right? You can do this. I assure you. So If you need anything, if you're watching this on recording, feel free to comment below as well. And if you need anything, just shout. And let's make these last 2 days, last 3 days, 2 days, 3 days, 3 days of the challenge be great. And as always, guys, the best is yet to come. And I'm here to support you in your journey, whether it be via one-on-one coaching or just in this group. And let's keep this support up too, right? Because we can all thrive together. So, don't hesitate to reach out, comment, encourage somebody else that you see in this group, and we can all, get there together. So have a great day, guys.